Hello everyone, I wish you peace and happiness. Are you all healthy? Today, I will continue to share with you the difficult, scarce and challenging days of Huyen and her mother trying to make a living. The afternoon gradually came to an end, and the last rays of sunlight gave way to the night slowly descending around the small house. In the simple kitchen, the flickering flame beneath the clay pot emitted warmth that spread throughout the room. Huyen sat quietly by the fire, her hands clasped together, her eyes focused on the crackling red embers. Her face reflected a peaceful serenity mixed with a hint of contemplation after a long, exhausting day. On the small bamboo bed beside, Micah was lying quietly, hugging her little doll and giggling, occasionally humming a few childhood songs. Sometimes Huyen turned to smile gently at her daughter, her eyes filled with love, making the space even warmer. Outside, the sound of insects chirping blended with the cool breeze flowing through the bamboo walls, creating a peaceful evening. Although life was still full of hardships, the small house was filled with the warmth of maternal love, where Huyen and Micah always found simple happiness together. It was getting dark and Huyen gently stood up, took the oil lamp placed on the bamboo shelf. She carefully lit the wick, and the small flame flickered, casting a warm yellow light throughout the simple house. Holding the lamp with both hands, Huyen slowly approached the bamboo bed where Micah was playing. She gently bent down and placed the oil lamp on the small shelf at the head of the bed to provide enough light for her child while keeping it safe. Under the flickering light, Micah and Appo's face appeared innocent with a clear smile. Huyen softly stroked her child and Appo's hair, smiled kindly, and then sat down on the edge of the bed, allowing the oil lamp to continue emitting warmth and gentle light, dispelling the darkness that enveloped the small house. Micah ran over, smiled, and obediently sat on her mother and Appo's lap. Huyen gently wrapped her arms around her child, pulling her close. On the bedside table, the oil lamp still cast a soft yellow light. The mother and daughter watched the small flickering flame, imagining it was a birthday candle. Huyen smiled tenderly and softly began to sing, end quote, "Happy birthday," end quote. Micah also chirped along, singing with her pure childhood voice. The singing of mother and daughter echoed through the small house, blending with the warm oil lamp light and the chirping insects outside the porch. There was no big cake or bright candles, only the sincere love of a mother for her child. At the end of the song, Huyen gently kissed Micah and Appo's forehead and whispered, end quote, "May my child always be healthy, obedient, and forever smiling," end quote. Micah hugged her mother tightly, both of them smiling happily in the shimmering oil lamp light of the peaceful evening. Having just finished singing the birthday song, Micah giggled and then left her mother and Appo's lap. The child approached the bedside shelf, pouted, and gently blew on the flame of the oil lamp as if blowing out a birthday candle. Puff! The flame went out, and the small house was immediately plunged into darkness. Only the chirping of crickets outside and the soft rustling of the wind through the bamboo walls could be heard. Huyen smiled kindly, gently holding Micah and Appo's small hand and then reaching for the oil lamp. She carefully relit the wick with a still glowing matchstick. In a moment, the small flame flickered and burned brightly, casting a warm yellow light throughout the house. The shadows of mother and child were reflected on the bamboo wall, sometimes blurry, sometimes clear, swaying with the flickering light. Huyen softly stroked Micah and Appo's head and gently said, end quote, "The oil lamp I sent and Appo's a birthday candle, dear. We need to keep the lamp lit so both of us can see everything," end quote. Micah obediently nodded, smiling as she hugged her mother, and the small house was once again filled with warmth and the peaceful light of the evening. The flickering oil lamp light fills the small house, creating a warm atmosphere amidst the quiet night. Huyen sits on the bamboo bed, stretching out her arms to welcome Micah. The little girl giggles happily and quickly climbs into her mother and Appo's lap. Mother and daughter embrace, playing simple games together. Huyen gently pokes Micah and Appo's belly, making her burst into laughter, her tiny legs swinging constantly over the edge of the bed. In turn, Micah takes her tiny hands to hold her mother and Appo's cheeks and gives a loud kiss, making Huyen smile happily. Micah and Appo's pure laughter blends with Huyen and Appo's gentle laughter, echoing throughout the simple bamboo house, dispelling all fatigue after a long day. The bamboo bed, though small, is enough for mother and daughter to gather, cuddle, chat, and enjoy peaceful moments. Outside the porch, the insects and Appo's chirping continues non-stop, while inside, the flickering oil lamp illuminates the radiant faces of mother and daughter. It was late at night, and the space around the small house became quiet. The oil lamp still burned gently, casting a warm yellow light on the bamboo walls. Huyen looked at Micah sitting on the bed, her little eyes beginning to close from tiredness. She gently poured a glass of water from the clay jar and held it in front of her, smiling softly and saying, "Finish this glass of water and then we can go to sleep." Micah obediently took the glass with her small hands and slowly sipped each gulp. After finishing, she handed the glass back to her mother and smiled brightly. Huyen took the glass, gently stroked her child and Appo's hair and kissed her on the forehead. Huyen gently laid Micah down on the small bamboo bed. The child obediently closed her eyes, softly snuggling close to her mother as if seeking the familiar warmth. Huyen sat at the edge of the bed, one hand gently patting Micah and Appo's back in a steady rhythm, while the other held a conical hat, fanning to cool the air. The gentle breeze from the hat dispelled the stuffiness of the summer night, making the room more comfortable. She softly sang a lullaby, each note flowing smoothly and tenderly like a small stream running through a quiet night. The mother and Appo's singing blended with the gentle sound of the fan and the flickering oil lamp, creating a peaceful, warm scene. Micah and Appo's eyes gradually closed completely, her breathing becoming even and lighter. A small smile still lingered on her lips as if she were falling into a beautiful dream. Huyen patiently sat beside her, continuing to soothe and fan her for a while longer, her eyes filled with love. In the simple little house, maternal love made the late night truly warm and peaceful. When she saw Micah had fallen into a deep sleep, Huyen gently smiled and quietly stood up to avoid waking her. She approached the window, carefully pulled the curtain closed, covering the gaps to prevent the night breeze from entering the room. The faint yellow oil lamp light shone through the curtain, making the house feel even cozier. Then Huyen slowly went to the front door, closed the wooden door, and carefully latched it. She looked around once more to ensure everything was safe. Once everything was in order, Huyen returned to the bamboo bed, quietly gazing at Micah and Appo's peaceful sleeping face. Seeing her sleeping soundly, she gently stroked the child and Appo's hair, her eyes full of love and reassurance. Before leaving, Huyen remembered the stove still smoldering outside the porch. She gently stepped into the yard, holding a bamboo bucket filled with water from the jar placed beside the house. With slow steps, Huyen approached the stove, then gradually poured the water onto the red-hot logs. The sizzle sound rang out as the water met the hot coals. A thin white smoke rose and quickly dissolved into the night. Within minutes, the fire was completely out, with no remaining sparks smoldering. Huyen used a bamboo stick to gently stir the ashes to ensure the fire was fully extinguished. Then she calmly placed the bucket back in its place. Huyen did not forget to step out onto the porch, where little Pippi was lying obediently in front of the door. Hearing the familiar footsteps, Pippi gently wagged his tail, raised his head to look at his owner with eyes full of affection. Huyen sat down, gently stroking his fur, softly scratching behind his ears, which made Pippi happily nuzzle his head into her hand. Smiling, Huyen softly said, "Pippi, be good at home, remember to watch the house and help Mom." As if understanding her words, Pippi barked softly, then wagged his tail continuously, his eyes still trustingly fixed on Huyen. She patted his head once more before leaving the house. Pippi obediently lay down right in front of the porch, quietly serving as a loyal friend guarding the small house in the peaceful night. and Micah had a truly peaceful sleep. Huyen gently looked towards the bamboo bed, seeing Micah still sleeping soundly with steady breathing in the soft candlelight. Reassured that her child had a good sleep, she quietly stood up, closed the door and carefully locked it. Then, Huyen put on her headlamp, adjusted the strap securely. The white light cast a long streak on the ground in front of the porch. She carried a bamboo basket and stepped outside, then closed the house door carefully. Before leaving, she glanced back at the small house one more time, where Micah was peacefully sleeping and Pippi was still lying obediently in front of the porch. In the silent night, Huyen silently followed the dirt path leading to the field. The headlamp and Appo's beam swept over each bush, each puddle along the road, lighting her way through the darkness. The sound of crickets and frogs echoed everywhere, blending with the cool night breeze. Even though it was late at night, Huyen was still diligently going to the field to catch snails, hoping that tomorrow morning she would have a little extra income to take care of her and her child and Appo's life. When she reached the field, Huyen turned on her headlamp, its light gently sweeping across the shimmering water. She rolled up her pant legs and slowly waded down to the edge of the rice paddy, holding a bamboo basket in one hand and gently parting the grass and turning over clumps of algae to find snails with the other. The water and Appo's gentle ripples accompanied each step, blending with the chorus of frogs croaking in the midnight. Suddenly, Huyen lowered the basket to scoop once. When she lifted it up, she smiled because inside was a tiny fish thrashing its tail continuously. Under the flashlight, the fish and Appo's silver body sparkled like a piece of moonlight falling onto the water. Huyen carefully picked up the fish, admired it for a moment, then gently placed it into a small water-filled basin to prevent it from drying out. She continued along the edge of the rice paddy, patiently searching for more snails, hoping that tonight an Appo's catch would be enough to bring home for dinner. Micah gently woke up, rubbing her sleepy eyes, then slowly turned over and sat up on the bamboo bed. She looked around the small house, but did not see her mother Huyen anywhere. The oil lamp still flickered on the bedside shelf, illuminating the quiet room. Feeling thirsty, Micah obediently got off the bed and went to the bamboo table where the water jar and small cup were placed. Carefully, she took the cup, poured herself a glass of water, and slowly sipped each mouthful. After finishing, Micah placed the cup back in its spot, looked towards the door, hoping her mother would return soon. The house remained silent, only the insects outside and the flickering oil lamp, as the girl quietly waited for her mother in the late night. In the vast field immersed in darkness, Huyen wears a headlamp and moves slowly from one spot to another. The light scans across the flooded rice paddies, clearly illuminating each grass and the ditches where snails often hide. Whenever she spots a cluster of snails surfacing or clinging to the grass, she quickly bends down, uses a bamboo basket to scoop them up, and then picks each one to put into the basket. The sound of shells clattering against each other echoes steadily through the quiet night. The deeper she goes into the field, the more snails she finds. The bamboo basket gradually fills up, heavy in her hands. Although her legs are exhausted from wading through the fields for hours, she keeps walking, continuing along the ditches to find more. Seeing the bountiful catch of snails, Huyen smiles with satisfaction. She knows that these snails will help her and her mother have an additional simple meal. While wandering along the edge of the field searching for snails still clinging to the grass, Huyen suddenly stepped onto a hidden spot beneath murky water. End quote. Click. End quote. A metal mousetrap unexpectedly snapped shut, pinching her foot. The sharp pain made Huyen startle, let out a soft cry, and lose her balance, sitting down heavily on the bank of the field. The bamboo basket tilted to one side, a few snails rolling on the wet grass. Huyen clenched her teeth to endure the pain, her hands trembling as she held her injured foot. She took a deep breath and with both hands tightly gripping the trap and Appo's ends, she tried her best to pull with all her might to open the spring. After several attempts, the trap finally released. Huyen quickly withdrew her foot and sat quietly for a moment to let the pain subside. She checked the wound under her forehead flashlight. Her foot was red and scratched, but she could still move her toes. After resting for a few minutes, Huyen picked up the bamboo basket, took a deep breath and slowly stood up. Huyen bent down to look at her feet under the flashlight. After a moment, the spot caught in the mouse trap swelled and turned purple, throbbing with pain. Every time she moved, the pain spread across her foot, making her grimace. Knowing that continuing to wade through the field would be even more dangerous, Huyen sighed, looked at the bamboo basket filled with snails, and decided to go home. She lifted the basket, took slow steps along the dirt road leading back. The pain in her foot caused Huyen to limp, sometimes stopping for a few seconds to catch her breath before continuing. The flashlight on her forehead silently illuminated the path ahead. While the night enveloped the field, only the sounds of frogs and insects echoing. Although the pain was dull, Huyen only wished to get home quickly to her small house, where Micah was sleeping peacefully. She clenched the handle of the basket tightly, trying to endure each sharp step. The full basket of snails swayed with her limping stride, as the result of a hard night's work that she had exchanged for patience and resilience. After the journey back with her limping steps, Huyen finally arrived in front of the small house. She gently opened the door to avoid making any noise, then softly looked at the bamboo bed. Micah was still sleeping soundly, her peaceful face under the flickering oil lamp. Seeing that her child was still sleeping well, Huyen smiled softly, feeling more relieved. She placed the bamboo basket on the porch, scooped water from the large jar, and carefully washed the oyster she had just caught. The oysters were gently scrubbed multiple times to remove mud and dirt before being soaked in a basin of water to be cleaned again tomorrow morning. After finishing, Huyen limped out to the small ditch in front of the house. She bent down, using her hands to scoop cool water to wash away the mud and dirt on her hands and feet after hours of wading through the rice fields. Under the flashlight on her head, her feet were clearly visible with bruises and swelling from the mouse trap. Huyen winced slightly from the pain but still gently rinsed the wounds with water to clean the mud and prevent infection. After washing up, she slowly stood up, limping her way back into the house. Huyen carefully closed the door, turned down the oil lamp, and gently lay down beside Micah. The child, out of habit, shifted slightly, nestling close to her mother even though she was still sleeping soundly. Huyen wrapped her arms around her child, softly stroking the soft hair. Although her feet still ached painfully, Micah and Appo's warmth made her feel peaceful. Not long after, in the small house, only the sounds of insects outside at night and the steady breathing of the mother and child drifting into sleep. At dawn, the first rays of sunlight seeped through the cracks in the door, gently illuminating the small house. The cheerful chirping of birds outside in the garden blends with the cool breeze carrying the scent of the countryside, creating a peaceful scene. Huyen woke up early, quietly glancing over to see Micah still sleeping soundly, so she tiptoed softly to avoid waking her. Holding a broom made from dried coconut husks, Huyen slowly swept each corner of the house. The soft sound of the broom sweeping across the ground gently echoed, sweeping away the dry leaves and dust remaining from the day before. Although her feet were still swollen and bruised from the accident last night, she endured the pain and hobbled along to tidy up the house. After sweeping inside, Huyen took the broom outside. She gradually gathered the fallen leaves under the tree and swept the dirt yard in front of the porch. The morning sunlight spread golden across the yard, making the small space appear bright and warm. After sweeping, Huyen took the clay pot and stepped out onto the porch, planning to boil snails and prepare breakfast. She gently sat down on a small bamboo chair, placing the pot beside her. Every time she moved, her foot caught in the mouse trap from last night, causing sharp pain. Under the morning sunlight, the swollen purple bruise on her instep was clearly visible, making it still very difficult for her to walk. Just then, the sound of small slippers squeaking echoed from inside the house. Micah had just woken up, rubbing her sleepy eyes, and softly called out, "Mom!" Not seeing her mother in the room, the girl stepped outside. As soon as she saw Huyen, Micah happily ran over. But when she bent down, she suddenly saw her mother's foot swollen and bruised. The smile on Micah's face disappeared. The girl quickly hugged her mother, her eyes shining with worry, and softly asked, "Mom, what happened to your foot? Does it hurt a lot?" Huyen gently hugs her child, smiling to reassure her. She softly strokes Micah and Appo's hair and says, "Mom is fine, dear. Last night I went to catch snails and accidentally stepped on a mousetrap, so my foot is a little sore. I will rest for a few days and get better." Hearing this, Micah hugs her mother even tighter. The little girl gently places her tiny hand on her mother and Appo's arm as if to share the pain. Huyen leans down and softly kisses her daughter and Appo's forehead, her heart filled with warmth. In the peaceful morning at the small porch, the embrace and innocent concern of Micah became the greatest source of encouragement, giving Huyen more strength to continue overcoming the difficulties ahead. Huyen pulled the plastic basin closer and poured all the snails she had caught into it. She scooped water from the jar and poured it into the basin, using both hands to scrub each snail thoroughly, so that the mud and algae stuck on the outside would gradually come off. The water in the basin quickly turned cloudy with mud. Huyen poured out the dirty water, filled it with fresh water, and continued to scrub carefully. Although her swollen and bruised feet still hurt, she patiently worked little by little. After many rounds of changing the water and cleaning, the snails became shinier. Huyen gently scooped the snails into a large pot. She added just enough water, then carried the pot to place it on the wood stove. After neatly stacking the dry logs into the stove, Huyen used a matchstick to light the fire. Within a moment, the flickering flames burned brightly, licking around the bottom of the pot. Huyen sat beside the stove, occasionally using a bamboo stick to gently push the logs further in to ensure the fire burned evenly. Thin smoke rose up, carrying the familiar aroma of dry wood. While waiting for the snail pot to boil on the stove, Huyen suddenly looked down at her old plastic sandals, one strap torn, making walking even more difficult. She took a knife and held the blade close to the fire. After a while, when the blade was hot enough, Huyen placed the sandals on the ground and carefully pressed the hot blade against the torn edge. The heat softened the plastic at the edges of the tear and it began to melt, a thin smoke rising. When the plastic had softened, Huyen quickly set the knife aside, using both hands to gently press the torn edges together so they would stick. She held it for a moment until the plastic cooled and hardened. Then Huyen lifted the sandals to check. Although the seam was still visible, the sandals had been repaired and could be used for some more time. She smiled contentedly, set the sandals aside, and turned back to tend the boiling snail pot on the fire. Not long after, the pot of snails on the stove started to boil loudly. White steam billowed up, carrying the distinctive aroma of boiled snails. Huyen gently pushed aside some of the firewood with a bamboo stick to soften the flames, then carefully wrapped a thick cloth around her hand. Although her foot still hurt, she slowly stood up, limping over to the stove. With both hands firmly gripping the pot handle, Huyen gently lifted the pot of snails off the stove and brought it to the pre-placed bamboo basket beside her. She slowly tilted the pot, pouring the steaming snails into the basket. The boiling water dripped into the basin below, while the snails, full of heat, filled the basket, emitting a thick steam. Huyen used a bamboo chopstick to gently stir, draining the water and cooling the snails slightly. She took 2 small bamboo sticks, handed one to Micah and gently said, "Sit next to me, let and Appo's take out the snail meat." Micah obediently nodded and sat close to her mother with an eager expression. Huyen carefully picked each snail, skillfully used the bamboo stick to pry the snail meat out of the shell, and placed it into a clean bowl. Beside her, Micah also focused on following her mother's example. Her small, clumsy hands sometimes fumbled for a while before retrieving a snail, but each time she succeeded, she would smile brightly and show off to her mother. Huyen smiled encouragingly and, quote, "Good job, take your time." End quote. Hearing her mother's praise, Micah became even more diligent. The sound of shells clicking, the two mother and daughter chatting and laughing echoed under the small porch, making the morning lively. Before long, the bowl was filled with cleaned snails, and the shells were piled into a heap beside it. After taking out the snail innards, Huyen placed the bowl next to the stove. She put the pan on the wood stove, lit the fire, and poured a little cooking oil into the pan. Waiting for the oil to heat up, Huyen gently poured all the snail innards into the pan. Immediately, sizzling sounds rang out, and the aroma of snails combined with the hot oil spread throughout the small kitchen. Huyen held a wooden spatula, stirring evenly to ensure the snail innards cooked thoroughly and didn't oppose. Tea stick to the bottom of the pan. The snail meat shrank, turning a light yellow, emitting an enticing fragrance. She continued to stir gently over a moderate flame, occasionally using the spatula to push the snails from the edges of the pan toward the center for even cooking. Huyen approached the water basin beside the porch, where the glass noodles had been soaked until soft. She used a small strainer to lift the noodles out, drained the water, and brought them into the kitchen. Returning to the pan, when the insides of the snails were firm and fragrant, Huyen gently added all the noodles into the pan. She used a pair of long bamboo chopsticks to stir gently, ensuring the noodles were evenly coated with the snail filling, avoiding breaking the noodles. The transparent noodles gradually absorbed the water, frying and blending with the crispy, chewy snail pieces. Then Huyen seasoned with a little fish sauce, a pinch of seasoning powder, and some ground pepper to taste. She continued to stir well over medium heat, allowing the flavors to penetrate each strand of noodle and each piece of snail. Soon, the aroma of the stir-fried snail noodles filled the small kitchen. Micah sat beside, sniffing the fragrant smell, her eyes bright with excitement. Huyen smiled, stirring a few more times to ensure the dish was cooked evenly. Stir-fried glass noodles with snails just cooked to perfection, the fragrant aroma spreading throughout the small kitchen. Huyen carefully lifted the pan and looked out at the sunlit yard in front of the house. She stepped to the corner of the porch, limping as she carried the small bamboo table out to the yard, so that mother and child could eat while enjoying the cool breeze. Seeing her mother struggling because her foot still hurt, Micah ran over, offering her tiny hands to help support one corner of the table. The mother and daughter smiled together, slowly placing the table neatly in the shade in front of the house. Once done, Huyen went back to the kitchen, bringing out the hot stir-fried glass noodles with snails and placing it in the middle of the table. The steam rising up and the aroma of the noodles and snails blending together made Micah delightedly inhale. Huyen took 2 more pairs of chopsticks and 2 small bowls, placing them neatly on the table, then pulled out a chair for her daughter to sit. Mother and daughter sit side by side in front of a small bamboo table placed in the yard. In front of them is a pan of stir-fried vermicelli with snails still steaming, with a fragrant aroma spreading in the cool morning breeze. Huyen scoops some vermicelli into Micah and Appo's bowl, then gently stirs and blows on it softly to cool the dish. When it and Appo's just right, she smiles gently and says, and quote, "Okay, take your time eating, Don and Appo's tea, burn yourself." End quote. Micah obediently nods, picks up her chopsticks, eats small bites, and smiles happily because her mother and Appo's cooking is delicious. Seeing her daughter eat happily, Huyen then scoops her own portion of vermicelli. Although her feet are still swollen and painful from a hard night in Appo's work, her face still shows a satisfied smile. The chirping of birds on the branches, a gentle breeze blowing through the small yard, and Micah and Appo's clear laughter make the morning truly peaceful. In that simple house there were no luxurious meals, only a plate of stir-fried glass noodles with snails, made from the fruits of the mother and Appo's labor. However, for Huyen and Micah it was a meal filled with love, sharing, and hope. Despite life and Appo's hardships, mother and daughter always held hands and moved forward together, building peaceful and happy days in their small home. If everyone loves Huyen and Micah and Apos, S mother and child, please subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a supportive comment for the two of them to see the next developments. Every follow and every loving comment from everyone will be a source of comfort and encouragement for Huyen to try to get through difficult times. Thank you all very much.